Hello students, my name is Surendra Singh and I am assistant professor in the Department of Political Science in St. Xavier's College. Today we are going to discuss one of the most important topic, which is the United Nations Security Council and India. Before moving to that, I'll have a brief introduction to the United Nations. United Nations, the name that was given by the then President Franklin D. Roosevelt, it was actually signed in 1942. The declaration actually was signed in 1942 by 26 nations against the Axis power, that was Rome, Berlin, Tokyo Axis. It is forerunner to the League of Nations, which was basically formed to prevent the wars, but it was unable to do that. League of Nations, which was formed, or I can say established in 1990 under the Treaty of Versailles. And the basic objective that was given to United Nations was maintaining international peace and security, protecting human rights, delivering humanitarian aid, and promoting sustainable development and upholding international law. This was one of the most primary objectives that was given to the United Nations there. So, why I have been spelling this? Because I just wanted to tell you that there have been question mark on the working of United Nations, where our political leaders have questioned the working of United Nations, that what it has been doing during the COVID era, during Iraq war, during Afghanistan war, during Rwandan genocide, now in Syrian conflict. What is United Nations Security Council doing in Russia and Ukraine crisis? So we have a big question mark to the working of the United Nations. So we'll deal with one of the most powerful organ, that is United Nations Security Council. Friends, just to give a brief introduction, it was one of the most important organs formed in 1945 with the United Nations. The other were the General Assembly, the Trusteeship Council, the Economic and Social Council, the International Court of Justice, the Secretariat, and one of the most important and the powerful organ, that was United Nations Security Council, whose basic objective was to maintain international peace and security, and it's headquartered at New York. Friends, other than the functions that United Nations perform, there have been one of the most important functions and the objectives that have been given to United Nations Security Council. And first is to maintain peace and security. Another is that it has to determine the existing threat to peace and decide what action should be taken. Here, one thing which is very important is that it can take military action when needed. United Nations Security Council can recommend a method of adjusting disputes, and it can also investigate any situation or dispute that can lead to international friction. To call on the members, it can apply sanctions and any other measures that could prevent aggression. Friends, the composition of United Nations Security Council is of two types. One is the permanent members and another is the non-permanent members. The permanent members are the victorious countries of the Second World War, which have kept themselves with one of the most disputed and debatable power, that's the veto power with them. And these five countries are the United States, the Russian Federation, France, China, and the United Kingdom. And to give voice to the other countries, there have been 10 non-permanent members which are elected, which are distributed on the basis of region. So these countries are elected for 2-year term, and India has been there for 8 times. And I could remember India got 184 votes out of 193 countries because of being the leader of the developing world there. And that's why India has been demanding reforms in United Nations Security Council. Next please. What are the challenges? What are the drawbacks that have led to the reform of the United Nations Security Council? Friends, I'll tell you, one of the most important thing is that there is lack of adequate representation. Lack of adequate representation means The African continent is almost absent in the United Nations Security Council. With 54 countries, you find no country being there in the United Nations Security Council. Globally important countries such as India, Germany, Brazil, South Africa are not the permanent members. Next is the misuse of the power, the veto power. You can you can imagine what have been going on in and around the world, these two wars.